All right. So um, this is our monthly meetup presenter format for Twin Cities Large Scale Scrum. We are very excited and honored to have Jürgen with us to lead us through the discussion and share some real life experience from the trenches and some of his observations around product owner team collaboration. Jürgen is doing us an extra favor because this is close to midnight, I think, his time. So he's working the late shift to be able to share with our community and give us some background. Our sessions are always recorded and posted on our WordPress site. So we'll send out a few links as well as the link, obviously, that you use to join the session and the community on meetup.com. And then we'll potentially continue the discussion using Slack. We've got a Slack channel set up as well, so that if we're talking and we have a thread or something else that you want to continue the discussion, we'll be able to continue that offline as well and add our observations as well. And then every other month, we typically do a lean coffee format. So many times we have a discussion with a practitioner like Jürgen, and then we carry on some of those topics and discussion threads into the lean coffee the next month as well. So look for that to pop up in the meetup session as well, and join us for lean coffee next month. So with that, Jürgen, another thank you for making the time for us late in your evening, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, cool. So it's 8 minutes past midnight here in this thing. So if we continue for 2 hours, it's still 2 a.m. for me. Let me share my presentation and then get it going. I hope you all see the presentation. Oh. No, let me redo this. Oh, I need to. Oh, that's going to be better. Presentation is visible.
Yes.
We got it. And Jürgen, I forgot to mention so the Q&A format will have people just informally, if you have questions, feel free to come off of mute and ask as Jürgen is talking through his presentation. You can also use the chat on the Zoom, and Dave and I will keep an eye on that and shout things out if you're not in a spot where you can come off mute as well. So just for format's sake.
Yeah, just interrupt me along the way. So that's going to be more easier. Yeah, I will not look at the chat window. That would be too many windows all at once, and I like to be focused in my work somehow. So in that case, the product owner Obeo, or in other words, how does a product owner team truly collaborate? So ever since I started working with Scrum back in 1998, by the way, I started scaling it as an employee. And it became a less huge alike structure, even before less was coined in that moment in time. So we had to work with a bunch of what today would be called area product owners, together with product owner, and so forth and so on. So that's quite a challenge. It's a different challenge than making a development team work together, for example. When I became a consultant back in 2011, so 16 years of an employee, and then became a consultant. So I have some way to not just kickstart stuff, but to actually make it sustainable. I had similar challenges with older, less adoptions and going into less huge, for example, and experimented with different practices. So today I want to share a practice which has been proven successful in different cases. I won't say it's going to be successful in your case. It's proven to be successful in different cases, and sharing some experiences doesn't hurt anybody, isn't it? So before I continue, I will actually get you either bored or energized with a small video, which I, to be honest, hope many of you have already seen. If you now see the preview of the video, who has seen the video already? Not with the preview. I'm pretty sure once I started, you will notice about it. So let's go.
I first did Scrum as a product developer in a very small company. It was easy to know our product vision as it evolved and our priorities as they emerged. Our product owner, an entrepreneur, was right there sharing our business objectives. He prioritized one product backlog and we refined it together. Customer interaction helped us know the details of what to do. It also helped that we were a cross-functional team, including a UI design expert. As we grew into a self-managing team, our product owner learned to delegate more and more to us. When I started working with larger organizations trying to do Scrum, I wanted their teams to be productive. Scrum worked so well for me in a small company, why not just copy-paste the same pattern into a larger organization? Thinking only about team productivity, in those days it seemed to make sense for each team to have its own person trying to act as product owner. But unlike my product owner, none of these people had the authority to make major business decisions about the whole product. The organization expected them to focus on their team's delivery. I'll call this common deviation from Scrum a team output owner, because that's what the organizations I've seen are actually expecting from them. With respect, when I say team output owner, please consider that it may apply to you or others that you currently call product owner. Without authority to prioritize the whole product backlog, each team output owner was in charge of a team backlog, which for good reasons is not a Scrum artifact. Those teams initially seemed productive at stuff, and there was kind of an illusion of improved agility. They improved their internal collaboration within teams, but not between teams. As a naive Agile coach, I didn't know what to do except a pattern I'd heard of called Scrum of Scrums. That often devolved into a traditional project manager status meeting. Real Scrum teams try to develop shippable products every sprint so we can more quickly learn what our end users really need. Teams in large organizations sometimes only make components that are not end-to-end customer-centric features. Focusing on the internal objectives of middle managers instead of broader business objectives can cause teams to try to increase team output, sometimes measured as velocity. What will happen later when it turns out the components made by different teams don't fit together? People sometimes think teams should focus on increasing their output. It's easy to get distracted by measurable things like velocity, but in the big picture, focusing on that can increase integration problems and actually delay our ability to get a customer response. If our work has to be integrated with other stuff to get shippable features, it can take longer to get a real customer reaction, learn from it, and adjust our direction. More focus on internal objectives from internal organizational layers means less focus on business objectives and the whole product view. Longer end-to-end cycle times with the customer reduce agility. Another weird thing about many large organizations is that development teams often don't talk to customers and end users. Developers start to see internal go-betweens as their main connection to the customers or even the other development teams. Trying to satisfy internal go-betweens isn't nearly as fun or effective as talking to real customers using our product. A real product owner can make major business decisions and evolve the product vision as we learn more. The customer-centric product backlog describes problems, not tasks, and the development team can do the high-order work of devising solutions. They don't only code the specifications. As a cross-functional team, they should bring or learn all the necessary skills to do high-order work. Some of those skills include analysis, architecture, design, testing, integration, coding, deployment, user experience, and they learn the business domain. Scrum combines cross-functionality with the removal of role distinctions. Eliminating roles puts process ownership in the team's hands. Some people think Scrum is about adding stuff like burn-down charts, Fibonacci numbers, velocity. Those added things might sometimes be useful, but they aren't part of Scrum. The main benefits of Scrum are from eliminating processes and roles. When the product owner has made a major business decision, he or she can change the product backlog to reflect this. There's no structural change to the organization, and the team is already in the habit of taking on high-order problems and learning new things. A team in a large organization runs the risk of becoming over-specialized in one area of the code. And by the way, other teams can't understand their code either. Sometimes their skills will be out of date and they won't know that there are other useful methods and techniques. The team output owner will try to order the local backlog to deliver the most value, will have the illusion that Scrum is working. Teams can also fall into thinking this is optimal, maybe from being too focused on output or maybe too comfortable being told exactly what to do. But the benefit to customers is less than it should be because there's more important work to do hidden in other backlogs that our team isn't learning about. Our team's top item is less important than the work other teams don't even have time to start. Keeping separate team backlogs, separate lists, obscures this problem. Odds are only a few teams are doing the most valuable work. Our impact on the customers will be limited. And changing directions, the whole point of agility, will be difficult with this kind of organization. Team output owners are stuck in the middle. They are intermediaries without the authority to make major business decisions. Sometimes they're held accountable for things they can't actually control. They risk becoming requirements engineers or business analysts or project managers. They might try to write perfect user stories as detailed requirements, then clarify them when they aren't perfect. They might coordinate the team's work with the work of other teams, track dependencies, administrative work, status reporting, or push the team for more output. In some cases, this person's under pressure from elsewhere within the organization, not really able to act as an entrepreneur. I respect the practitioners who feel that one person per team playing this role is appropriate for their situation. They get a lot done having someone in the room who can give immediate feedback and answer requirements questions on the spot. Of course, we all want that. I have the impression that the places this works already have the kind of social environment that minimizes power differences and people share responsibility naturally, just as a role-free team is required to do. But organizations that ask for my help are usually starting with hierarchical habits. For them, status differences linked to roles are very real, and I'm not going to tell them to pretend all roles are equal, but one role is more equal than others. To reduce the risk of adding unnecessary hierarchy, I like to emphasize the reason Scrum has only 3 roles and the power of role-free team self-organization when the Scrum Master and management create the environment that allows it. Why would we be afraid of this person joining without any special role designation separating them from the others? Then the team could figure out for themselves who would do what in each situation, instead of being constrained by a process imposed from outside. Team self-management happens without roles. What's scary about that? Please write to me what bad things you imagine would happen, and I'll make a follow-up video about those concerns. If my company was trying to develop a product with these people, and our long-term survival depended on learning to focus on the most important things, I'd consider keeping the most important problems in one real product backlog and asking product developers to focus on that instead of what's been easiest for them in the past. Of course, teams won't become interchangeable. That's something they can work out with each other as they decide for themselves which teams will do which product backlog items each sprint. To help foster a whole product view, I would ask the Scrum Masters to help remove the barriers between teams and to teach the product developers that collaborating across team boundaries is now a product developer responsibility. I'd also want to remove barriers preventing developers from getting detailed clarification from customers so we don't need to spoon-feed them anymore. In fact, now the developers will help manage the product backlog. It could take years before all this works the way I'm describing, but it's been done before. Our product backlog should constantly change, and we'll need someone with real authority and vision to maximize the value of our development work by making the final call on the order of those items. We don't need to invent a new name for our ultimate source of priorities, because it's not really a new role. Let's call this person Product Owner.
Yeah, video created by Michael James MJ. So at a certain moment in time, he was assigned as a mentee for becoming a less trainer to me. Actually, it's not more of a mentee, it was a mutual learning experience, but anyhow. So the reason I show this video is that I want to give you a warning. So whatever I'm going to explain in product owner team and things like that, it's something that is useful in a less environment, in a less huge environment where we really have a product owner with business mandates, business responsibility, and so forth. It's not relevant if you are running a context where we have team output owners. So that's where it doesn't suit the needs whatsoever. So just to make sure that you understand the difference between product owner and team output owner. Good. Yeah. So if we work with a product owner in a less or in a less huge environment where they have a business mandate, it means that their main purpose is actually to at least try to maximize the value for the organization and the impact to the outside world. That's the main drive of a real product owner. Not necessarily other things, which we come back to in a minute. So the first thing that we need to understand as a real product owner is that then how do we maximize value? What is value? And in that context, I do like to work with product owners and create some kind of strong vision and strategy. If you're maybe in a startup environment, having this kind of North Star metric might be a good replacement. If you're really into the new Scrum guides, which I'm not, by the way, you might go with the product goals. Whatever suits the context of the organization, we need to have a strong identification. What is value? How do we drive impact forward? It's not something you do once and then you have a strong value. For example, doing this kind of design sprint where you come up with some kind of vision and strategy, that's a good starting point, but I can promise you it's going to be a weak vision and strategy. It's not going to be a strong one yet. It needs iterations, it needs validation in the market and then not on paper. If you have a good vision and strategy built, you cannot keep it behind this kind of black hole, closed doors somewhere far hidden in your SharePoint. This would not suit your needs. You need to share the love with the world around you. You need to do a hell of a lot of storytelling. From your initial vision strategy, all the learning you achieve every single iteration over and over again, so that you adjust also there. All stakeholders surrounding you should be aware what is the change and why did we change and all that thing. So how do we now drive value forward more appropriately? So that's an important aspect, and you can validate this. So you can validate, is my product owner now really doing a good job in vision strategy, defining value, doing the storytelling to everybody, yes or no? Something I learned from John Sadden, which is a great systems thinker, by the way, but more in the service domain than the product development domain, is doing demand analysis. So you basically look at the incoming requests. So there's a tremendously amount of incoming requests towards the product owner, towards the product itself. So it comes from hippos, customer support, customers, your own teams, whoever. So are you familiar with the acronym HIPPO, by the way?
Highest paid person in the room.
Yeah, the highest paid person's opinion. I see too many organizations building products for hippos instead of their customers. But anyhow, so you get lots of requests coming in. If you do the demand analysis, for example, and you see lots of requests supporting your vision and strategy as a product owner, it probably means you have a strong vision and strategy at hand, and you do very well your storytelling to them. Because if they ask you and do demands towards you at their product, supportive to this thing, it means they are engaged into your vision and strategy. If the demand analysis show you we have requests coming in or demands coming in to change something over here and then something over there and then something over there and something over there and so forth, it goes all over the place, then most probably either you have a very weak vision and strategy still, or you didn't do your storytelling enough. And if you want to maximize value, those are the most important things to work on first, isn't it? So that's where we need to drive things forward. In the slide deck, you see on the right side, that's a sample of a B2B environment where we want to evaluate or do some demand analysis. And if you work in a business-to-business environment, then I can assure you the sales organization selling the contracts and all the rest of the things and answering RFP documents and so forth, they have a tremendously good CRM system with lots and lots of data. So we explored the CRM system. We said, okay, let's evaluate the amount of deals sold and the amount of, I'm a European guy, so the amount of euros on the deals sold based on existing product. The deal sold based on an existing product, but will require a small hack or a small workaround. The deal sold based on a near-term planned feature, or the deal sold based on a long-term roadmap, or then, you know, those deals sold based on a one-off neat horizon thing, which we will most probably never do, but it's sold anyhow thingy. So we examined this thing, and then we saw in June how things were. And if you look at the deals based on existing product and deals based on existing product, but with small workaround, then it's not even half of it. By presenting the data, by working on vision and strategy, also by making sure we did a lot more storytelling to the sales organization, you see in about 1, 2, 3, 4 months later, actually 60 to 70% of what is being sold is actually existing product with small workarounds. That's maximizing value. This is where product owners need to work on. This is where we first need to focus on. And that's already, in many cases, a tremendous amount of work. And then we go into this situation where we see, okay, you know what? This product owner also has some kind of relationship towards the teams that are working on the product. And then many people seem to expect that the product owner will come up with all the detailed requirements for the features to build, so the teams can focus on building and not are being bugged around by trying to uncover the requirements. So getting everything into a state of ready for the teams. If you now think like, okay, if we have 8 teams sitting there and this one product owner there that already had to work on vision strategy, all that storytelling, looking at the demand analysis, all of that thing to evaluate, do I have a strong vision and strategy? Do we really maximize the value? Do we drive market demand forward, and so forth? Do we really now think like getting into all those detailed requirements, a single person can handle this? Yes, no? I don't think so. No way a person can handle this. If they would be bugged with detailed requirements, and most probably they will start writing the detailed requirements. Why? Because people close to them, the teams, need this to get the work done. And then they will neglect their vision strategy. They will neglect what is real value now for us team. So meaning we are going to start delivering and putting lots of investment, work, effort into stuff that is rarely or never used. You know, the Standish report with 60 to 64% of features rarely or never used. That's one of the reasons in those things. So that's not really the case. So if you look at detailed requirements, clarification is happening between the teams developing the stuff and then the people consuming the value. So from a lean thinking perspective, it would mean we are putting the 2 gambas together. The gamba of value creation and the gamba of value consumption need to be close to each other, talk to each other. If I look at my own experience, we did a last huge base company, which is one of the bigger telecom operators here in Belgium. And teams that needed to change the shop application actually went into the shop. The first day observing the shop clerks doing their work, the second day doing the work of the clerks with support of the clerks, and the third day have some small conversations related to upcoming features possibly. So just to make sure we get into the right stuff. So this is where clarification is there. Even if there would be a huge wall between the teams creating value and the people consuming the value, even then I would keep the clarification within the teams. If we have 8 teams over there, and let's say we have 5 people in every team, then we have 40 people. If 40 people think this is the best way we can think of to satisfy that need, who's that one person which is called product owner to say it's not? Even from a mathematical risk perspective, it doesn't make sense. So that's where we need to provide focus only and leave the details and trust the teams to come up with the right details. If not, we have feedback loops, don't we? We really don't want this kind of Chinese whispers or broken telephone. You know, when we were this very small at school, I'm pretty sure you have this in the US and Canada and everywhere else as well. At school, you get this kind of silly exercise. At a certain moment in time, the teacher comes to you and they say, yeah, you know what? I give you a piece of paper with a sentence, and I read the piece of paper with a sentence, and then I need to whistle it into James's ear. And then James needs to whistle it in Alex's ear. And then Alex needs to whistle this in Consuela, her ears. And then she is going to whistle it in David's ears. And then David is going to write it down again. We all know whatever David is going to write is never what I have read, is it? So it means for me, we are a lot smarter when we were little and uneducated than when we are educated working in a business environment. Because in business environment, what is generally happening, a user has an issue, they have to go to their manager go to your account manager to a business manager, from a business manager to a business analyst, from a business analyst to a technical analyst, and so forth and so on. And after 10 to 12 stations, it hits the development team, and now we expect something useful to come up. That's not a good reason to put a product owner team in practice. That's where we need to rely on the teams themselves to take the effort up. So if we want to maximize value, we need to, as a product owner, provide focus. So that's the only thing we need to do. This thing like focus, you know, I sometimes hear this metaphor or the thing that I say, yeah, you know, and development teams definitely, you know, 9 women cannot deliver a baby in a single month. So we can also not do this. This is bullshit. This is plain bullshit, not the women, by the way, but in software craftsmanship, if you have decent craftsmanship practices, you can easily work with a multitude of teams on the same code base, on the same class even. So this doesn't make sense whatsoever. So high focus we need. And why do we need high focus? Because high focus will drive serious impact. So this will really rocket us into the sky. You know, if I have 8 teams working and 8 teams are working on, I don't know, 26 different features all over the place, and then we release this to the market, it's like flies coming to me. It's like I won't even change the way I walk because of that. You know what? They will hurt me and I will not even feel it. If I have 8 teams working on one significant, impactful thing into the market, that's an elephant coming to me. If they hit me, I will feel it. And this is what we want to have. High focus will drive serious impact so that every single sprint, every single iteration, we create an increment that has been felt into the organization with our clients, with our customers. So that's one part of things, to make it even a bit more rational. So if we have 8 teams and 7 people in every team, and we have a 2-week sprint, it means we have an investment of 560 man days. So in euros, if we look at the average paycheck for 1 day of work in euros, that's 700 euros a day for a team member. So this would mean that we spend 392,000 euros every sprint if we cannot deliver something significantly impactful. With 560 man days or close to 400K, then there's something else broken, isn't it? And now we should not talk about product owner team, then we need to fix the other thing that's broken, which is most probably technical excellence and technical skills. Anyhow, so in this case, no product owner team needed, so no worries. But imagine. So imagine now you are in this situation. You're in this, I don't know, 10,000 people organization, 5,000 people organization, so multiple thousands of people. And now we start the less adoption. And in less, we have this kind of guideline or a principle in adoption, which says we are going to go deep and narrow over broad and shallow. So we don't do this broad and shallow agile theater adoptions. We find the sweet spot in the organization, the small, deep, narrow space. And now we are going to adopt within that narrow space, we're going to apply less as it is intended to, with little to no compromise. So we have this small piece in the big puzzle, not a parallel organization, by the way. So parallel organization would be different. You put the small piece outside this huge bubble. Now it's a small piece inside the huge bubble, which is for me the the most common way on adopting less, and at least in my environment. So if you have this small piece, then this small piece will have in their backlog, for example. So in this product backlog, the small piece, there will be hundreds of PBIs, so product backlog items, which are considered either entire programs or projects or other things outside that bubble. So because of the rest of the organization, you still will have a PMO office, most probably, with program managers, project leads, and other BS jobs in that context, not basic Scrum, the other meaning. So there will be quality and regulatory, where you have to connect to infrastructure, enterprise architects, investment committees, external partners. So there's lots of reporting needs kicking in. There's lots of non-less event meetings that you suddenly need to attend. So you get into this kind of reporting and ad hoc meeting mayhem. So to be honest, if you look at most of the ad hoc meeting mayhem that you work in large corporate environments, if I would observe this and classify this, I would most probably classify this as corporate masturbation. The only ones benefiting are the ones doing it. Voila. So people from GOSE, other less trainers, by the way, like Ron and Ari, they called it coordination chaos. So whatever wording you want to use. But it's the outside world, it's not in the inside. And if we look at the inside world of less, the teams are pretty much protected by the management and the product owner. So if we now look, the product owner has to deal with PBIs and all those constraints and all those reporting needs and all those kickoff meetings and all the rest of the stuff. So can a single person handle this? Nope, most probably not. So, and this is a real case. So the deep and narrow, you look at, well, pardon the Dutch, by the way. So, but this 3-stage image is from a 5,000 people organization where we did this deep and narrow at the bottom. So immediately jump forward to the end state, where they understood the rest of the organization will take a couple of years longer. So for the rest, they did some kind of deep, broad, and shallow. I think Prince 2 agile approach, and then they went for a small piece, 70 to 80 people, into the deep and narrow approach, really doing less. Of course, if you do this deep and narrow, small arrow at the bottom, you need to connect to the rest of the organization somehow. So in this context, so in November 2019, we did this preparation of last Kaikaku event. The Kaikaku is also called a flip forward event. It really means we prepare very well before we apply Scrum or large-scale Scrum less into the context of the organization. We prepare very well, and then we have a Kaikaku event, means we go for radical change. You're all familiar with Kaizen. Kaizen is this incremental, iterative improvements continuously going upwards. And if you look at the lean in the lean world and lean thinking, for example, you can do Kaizens until you hit the limits of the system. So if you look at a factory, for example, you can do Kaizens until you hit the limits of your factory line design. And at that moment in time, you need to do a radical change. It means you need to change the setting of your factory line. You need to do a system change. That's what is called Kaikaku. So if we do this less adoption, and that's what I do at least, so I prepare people, persons, the organization very well. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it takes half a year in preparing, setting things right to make sure we can do this kind of huge system change in a deep and narrow space. In their case, we did this preparation in November. We did a Kaikaku event in January. And you see, by summertime that same year, we already broadened up the product definition. So we got extra teams. If we say we broaden a product definition, it means we add extra mandates and skills to be able to touch, maintain, develop code into a multitude of other applications, components, whatever you want to call it. So by May, the year after, in May 2021, we expanded product definition again, which caused us to double the amount of teams and go into less huge. In their context, so having the 5,000 people still being pretty small in this context, we had a product owner team of 3 people. So we still had 1 product owner, but there were 2 persons in there to help support with all the reporting and other meeting needs that were acquired to connect to the rest of the organization.
Jürgen,
Clear? Yeah.
yes. What did you do about the from the code base perspective? So the problem is they're still touching the same code that the other groups are touching, and typically the other groups do not have the same quality standards and discipline that the less teams or the feature teams are hopefully having.
And in their context, James, the one that you see now on the slide, for
Yes,
example, they had the full components owned within the last bubble. So the other teams outside the bubble were not touching the same code base.
Okay, that helps
But
when
they
you get
had
away
to
with
integrate.
it.
They had to integrate in some of release
In some
schedules
fashions,
with
yeah.
other components, and we had feature flags which were disabled until the others delivered, and so
Yeah.
forth and so on. So this is a bit of a thing. But if I look at the Governmental Institute for Pensions, where I also did a LES adoption, that's different. We prepared for a Kaikaku event with 6 teams out of 17. So, but the other teams in the organization were still touching the same code base. In the preparation phase, we initiated the absolute needed level of technical excellence to be able to go faster within the LES bubble, so deliver every 2 weeks, and go a bit slower with the rest of the organization without having too much of merge misery.
I've done it both ways, and it's a challenge both ways. Finding the place to put the knife is the challenge on the isolation. Where to find an organizational boundary that aligns with the architectural boundaries in a helpful way.
Yeah, I find it easier if you take full ownership of a component with you in the LES, because then you can work with contract-based testing, for example, to cover the needs a bit more. In contradiction to touching the same code base over and over again with different speeds. Anyhow, maybe a topic for another time.
Srikanth had also asked if this was a mono repo, like a single repository, after the event took place.
And the Governmental Institute for Pensions had a mix. So they had a huge legacy with the mono repo, and then they had quite a better structure and a multitude of repos on more modern practices. The case I'm showing here with this huge organization, it's a separate code base per application, and the application was owned, so it's not that difficult. And we had to clean up a lot along the way. But those are more struggles inside the team on the technical excellence, which is less on the product owner team. So those are things in the thing. So can we continue on the product owner aspect of the things? So there are challenges on the technical aspect, but that's a different talk. So good. So that's one scenario. Another scenario which is frequently coming back is this one. You have this kind of one product you are building, and it's shipped worldwide. So at a certain moment in time, you get this like gazillions of like huge competition all over the place. Global, local players threatening your position. So the question is, how do we stay ahead and make sure we keep winning the game as a product owner? How do we know when and how to adjust our direction when it's really needed? So what information is now becoming very important. If we look at this kind of worldwide shipping of a product, then we need to know who and what is our competition, how does it relate to us. So, and this is not only for 10 or 12, for hundreds, not to say thousands of them. We need to understand the market trends. We need to understand sales trends. If it's a B2C environment, we need to understand the unit economics that are happening in this thing and how they are shifting in different regions. So this is quite a lot of information. If we understand, we need to be busy with vision and strategy and storytelling, and now like worldwide, and we need to keep track of all of this. Do you think a single person can handle this? Not really, is it? So also in this case, a client of mine in a B2B environment with a small twist of B2C, by the way, with teams in Belgium, Romania, and India. The product owner was called product director. I don't bother that much, to be honest. So as long as they behave as a very good product owner, whatever they put on in their email signature, I don't bother. So, but anyhow, the product director was supported by she and he, and she was doing magic with the market and sales information. So collecting it from all over the world, then doing some magical thing, making the data and the information, make sure it makes sense, and then provide this back to the product owner. The product owner decided if he needed to adjust direction, yes or no. And then there was another person that was in the product owner team, day in, day out, either buying new applications and products for competition or upgraded products from competition, and then creating this kind of SWOT analysis. If it's hardware, for example, hardware, software related, also opening up the hardware, because if you look at the hardware investment from a product, you can distill the potential strategy that might be behind this product in future software upgrades. So also all of this information, gathering this information, investigating this was one person full-time job, and then providing this information back to the product owner. You know, those two things are not really helping in creating new value in the product, so they suit very well to be in the product owner team. It's information that is crucial to be a good product owner. So that's where we have those people really supporting the product owner. Clear? So the two scenarios of generating product owner team, one is handling reporting needs and meeting mayhem. The other one is more related to making sure we can absorb all the information that we need to redirect sales, markets, and things like that. Good. Yeah. Now we have this product owner team. Great. So we have a good, sensible product owner teams now. It's by coincidence I now picked out two where it's 3 people, it could be 4 or 5, anyhow. So how do they collaborate? And that's the main topic here. Is it again going to be ad hoc meetings? So whenever we need, we try to figure out when does it suit our agenda and then book a meeting? Or is it this kind of continuous instant messaging, or even worse, continuous email replies and forwarding and all that misery? So, or just taking the phone and disturb each other whenever we like. So I hate phone calls, by the way, to be honest. It's always a disturbance. For me, it's good because I want to, something, so I phone. But if I would phone Samuel, for example, then Samuel is busy with doing something else. Every phone call is an interrupt, so it's never a good choice. So, or we could choose to put it into a process and documents like Jira and Azure DevOps and other misery. And then rely on the tooling that we get the right collaboration ongoing. I see the same things happening with development teams, by the way. So we go into sprint planning and they task it out in so much details that I know what to do and that David, you know what to do. And for the rest of the sprint, we don't need to work together. Now, this is putting collaboration in the process. I dislike it very much. That's where the product owner Obeya comes to the rescue. Now, what is now the product owner Obeya? If we want to give you some insights in this, then we first need to go, what is Obeya? Obeya comes from Toyota, which has a long history in continuous improvement and visual management. So it's a large room, by the way. The Obeya stands for large room, not for war room, which I sometimes hear. Definitely don't call it war room, because the war room would point to crisis management. That's nothing to do with crisis management. It's something where all information is visible to identify problems, improve on them, and also be able to make quick decisions. So that's already a good thing. So we have all the information, we see problems, we can act on this, we can make quick decisions. So I think this is already getting us into a good direction as a product owner team to be able to collaborate in some way. So on top of that, I put a practice which is called leading with Obeya. Leading with Obeya is something that Tim Wiegel, so a Dutch guy, which I'm very well familiar with, actually I would say friends these days. So Tim came up with leading with Obeya, which is adding routines, which adding a bit more structure on top of Obeya, which is 100% fit for purpose. So why do I think it's 100% fit for purpose? Because it has some strategic element into it. So we have lead successful strategies, drive performance. It's strategically mentioned, which is crucial for our product owner, vision strategy, you know. And there's a tactical piece on it. So how do we perform on this? Do we need to readjust direction? So that's also in there, so which is great. It has a rhythm and routine, so we can align it with the heartbeat rhythm of less events, for example. And what I think is important, we see, learn, and act together. So it's really about working together. And on top of that, it has designed for this kind of keep improving, for this kind of continuous improvement. And we can see this by mapping out, for example, the lean improvement kata, or the empirical process control principle from LESS, by the way. So onto this leading with Obeya canvas. If you look at purpose and strategic capabilities, that would be number one. We need to, in a lead improvement kata, we get the direction or challenge. That's our purpose and capabilities we want to really achieve. Now we need to grasp the current conditions. So number two, which means this is the drive performance, the metrics. What kind of metrics do we have? And where are we at today? And if we understand where are we at today with the metrics, then we can identify what would make sense as a next target condition. So what will be number three? So, and if we understand this is where we want to get to in a month or in 2 months, then we can put a threshold. And now we understand where we are at, where do we want to go, how does it contribute to our purpose or strategic capability. And only if we understand this, that's the moment when we start extracting experiments, conducting experiments, meaning we are going to extract product backlog items. So every backlog item is an experiment. Every backlog item is a hypothesis of value. If you think this is valuable, that's where things go wrong. You can only validate if it's valuable, if it's in the hands of the end users, if it's being used inside your market. So everything is an experiment. So in that case, it fits very well the mindset which we want to have in a LESS environment. And anyhow, this continuous improvement, validation, adjusting, and so forth and so on. So being adaptive, responsive to the market. So let's dive into a live example. So this is the product owner Obeya of the first scenario I've given to you, where we have the 3 people working together to satisfy the reporting and meeting mayhem from the rest of the organization. On the left side, we have the lead successful strategies, where we have the main purpose clearly defined. And then we have 5 strategic capabilities connected to that. This is one part. So if you look at this Obeya, it's split into 4 pieces of the puzzle, by the way. So the left part is leading successful strategies is part 1. This is where we need to start to have a clear idea about. We expanded with a bit more on the right. Then you see this metrics or trend lines coming up. So those are the current situations plus the next target condition. If I ask you, where do you see problems? And it's going to be very easy, you know, the second row, the third, and the fourth. It's red. That's where we don't deliver the things as we expected it to be. So, and on top of that, we are going to put routines to make sure we can address problems. We can readjust the directions or readjust our expectations, maybe. So in the centerpiece, you see this digital open data and service platform. It's deliver value. This is the backlog items. There are big orange and blue post-its and a red one at the bottom. Those are real big things that needs to happen. It's a kind of a theme, I would say, and they are connected to those strategic capabilities. In this case, with numbers. Preferably, it would be in the same row. In this case, it's with numbers. So that becomes very clear. If we get something done, then we can go back to see, we can see, okay, for which capability was it? And then we can evaluate on the metrics, did we actually deliver something impactful? Or did we just deliver something without generating any impact on the metrics which are important for us? So, and on the full right side, that's more of the musketeers things, one for all for one. That's where we have the act and respond, which we frequently coordinate, distribute work amongst each other as a team and help each other out. So that's the basic idea. Let us zoom in into each one of those aspects. So first, the lead successful strategies, purpose, capabilities, and its routine. Then we go to the more of the drive performance, the metrics and the the current situation and target conditions and its routines, by the way. And then we can go to the deliver value, the backlog items, how do they contribute in this? And then we go to this act and respond, please. Clear? Good? Yeah, one by one. Okay. So first things first, this purpose, strategic capabilities, or from the lean improvement kata number 1, get direction or challenge. If you look at purpose, it's this is a simulated environment, not a real one because of NDAs and so forth. But anyhow, I use this in workshops as well. The grow it yourself. So our purpose is that we improve people's health and ecological footprint by making sustainable food production available in small spaces. So, you know, if people go to the shops and so forth, they go by car, they have CO2 going into the air, then they buy healthy food, and healthy food is very expensive. So maybe I cannot afford it myself, so I buy unhealthy food instead, and so forth. And to get the unhealthy food into the shop, it also takes carrying around and CO2. So it's healthy, but the ecological footprint is not that nice. So we want to make sure that we, even in small places and dense cities, people can actually grow their own healthy food, which would be very useful and cheap. If we look at strategic capabilities, we have 4 of them: customer delight, product quality, environmental impact, and financial viability. So as strategic capability, what is important with strategic capabilities is that we apply MEES. You know, MEES, the mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. If you would say the purpose is standing on a table, and then we have a table with 4 legs. So this would be the 4 legs means mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. If we say mutually exclusive, you know, if I would put a 5th leg next to one of the 4, would it help in the stability and the performance of the table? Not really. So it should be exclusive enough so that if we remove one, for example, if we remove one of the 4 legs of the table, then it becomes less stable where our purpose is sitting on. So it would mean that we need to have collectively exhaustive. It should provide stability towards its purpose. So we need the full spectrum in that scenario. For each of the strategic capabilities, I think all of you can say, okay, we want to have customer delight, or in the strategies of every organization, you can pretty much copy paste because of Boston Consulting Group going everywhere, or McKinsey. You know what, if you ask an organization, what is your strategy? Oh, we need to become more customer central and we need to become more digital. Voila, ding dong. So in that case, we also really need to explain it a bit more. And in this case, for example, customer delight, let me read it. So healthy food in urban districts with limited space. Housing is expensive and difficult to get. We'll provide a simple solution for people to grow and share their own food products, a solution that understands food production on its own and doesn't require people to become farmers, a solution that fits small spaces, is technologically advanced and yet very much affordable. Voila, that's a clear statement. And this is important. If you define those strategic capabilities, you really need to define more into context, into text as well, into a couple of paragraphs. What do we really mean? And what is really important at this moment in time? It will change over time, not within a month, not within 2 months, but in a year or maybe 2 years, this might be adapted to according to the new needs. So, and this you do for everything in that context. So when do we want to refresh this, and how do we put a routine on that? I think every organization already has it. It's this kind of once or twice a year offsite event where you have business managers and other people going over there to see, okay, where do we need to realign our purpose? Do we need to align our strategic capabilities? Do we need to shift or do different things as details within that capability, and so forth? So I think most of you have this. Practices that I like to use to get it right, by the way, is pitch prototyping. Why do I love to use pitch prototyping? It's a mechanism of very fast feedback, but very ugly stuff. And it's a collaborative practice. It's not something somebody comes up with, it's something you collaborate on with stakeholders, with clients, with teams, with anybody that you are willing to support it. You can combine this pitch prototyping with the DHM model or GLE model, by the way. I also love those things. DHM and GLE come from Netflix. So if you're unfamiliar with Netflix strategic planning, for example, then please Google around. The previous product marketing director, I guess, is blogging and writing a hell of a lot of details related to their things. So, and DHM and GLE is two of the things that are very useful for them, and I think also very useful for other organizations. So this is what I tend to use. If we have the purpose and strategic capabilities set right, then we need to expand. And the next expand that we need to do is find this kind of current condition and the next target condition. So we need to look at like what kind of metrics, and the first part we do is brainstorm. What kind of metrics do we think are useful to work on at this moment in time? So, and then we brainstorm and we have lots of post-its, ease of food production, cost of food production, and so forth and so on. So we populate with a lot of different metric options, most probably more than we need. And this is going to be easy, populating with ideas about metrics. Then making them real is the difficult part. So after the population and brainstorm metrics, we need to select and really select the 2, maybe 3 metrics that are most important at this moment in time. And those are the ones we're going to focus on. We don't select all 5 or all 6 or all 7 of them, because then we don't generate focus, we dilute focus, we're going to start too many different things at once, we're not driving impact forward. So we really select what are the 2 or 3 most important metrics at this moment in time. And then I apply this metric template. The first thing that people will need to come up with is how do we measure? And this is really starting to create a kind of a detailed requirement on how to create the metric and how do we visualize the metric. For example, if I say I'm interested in the new customers we acquire, we could say, you know what? I will create a cumulative burn-up sheet with new customers joining. So at the first month, we have 1,000 customers, second month, we have 2,300 customers, and so forth. So it always goes up. So we could go with cumulative visualization. We could also say, you know what, we don't do cumulative visualization and just going up, up, up. We go with a bar chart. And we just say, like, every month, how many new ones that we had. And we do this in a bar chart. Both are valid for new customers, but it drives different focus. If you have a cumulative view on new customers, we also need to take into account the churn of our users, the people, the retention, the people going away. So it's not only about acquiring new customers, it's also about keeping them with us. That's the cumulative. If we do the bar chart, then it's only focusing on acquiring new customers. So it's very important to go into the details of the metrics and how do we visualize. Because this is driving a different focus point, which is driving different actions again, different results into our market. So that's that one.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Go.
Can you bring this back to the role that the PO plays in obtaining this focus in this format? I mean, it feels like I need to bring it back to understand it better. I need to level set back to how the PO role is driving the focus in this context.
So all what I have been talking about now in this product owner OBA is the product owner team collaborating to set it up.
And that's the entire team or this, okay, I think I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so the one product owner with the supporting people, which I have given you 2 different scenarios. There might be different other ones, but so those people need to come up with this so that they indeed drive the focus forward. So describing the details, the frequency about measuring. It's not about monitoring. Monitoring will be happening inside a routine on this drive performance part of this product owner. But it might be that we want to see it like, for example, the new users monthly. It might be that we want to see new users weekly. So it depends on the context of the metric, of course. So, but this we want to set up. So those are the things the product owner team really need to design. so
But we're
that we
still-
get into something useful. Who is owning this metric is the one that is going to make sure it's visualized on this Obea board. It doesn't mean this is the person that needs to do all the effort and that needs to track everything. So preferably it's automatically already tracked somewhere and we just need to take a snapshot and then put it on the board. But this is the owner here is the one that is responsible to make sure that we get updated metrics on the Obea board before we get into routines where we evaluate. So that's the only reason to have ownership. There's a fourth thing in this metric template, and that's when should the metric turn red? Initially, we don't fill it out. We cannot say, okay, it needs to turn red if blah, 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 because if we didn't visualize the metric yet, we don't understand the current condition. And we know from the lean improvement kata, we first need to understand current condition before we can define the next target. So we first want to understand what is the trend today. And then we say, okay, what is the next target we want to achieve? And after that, we are going to see, okay, what are the PBIs, the items in the backlog we need to initiate to make sure we get to the next target. And then we start tracking. So when does it turn red? The metric is red by default, by the way, until it's visualized. So, and if we then understand what the trend is today, and we set a target condition and thresholds, in other words, then we understand when it can turn green, if it's within the threshold and the expected growth, that's cool. If it's not within the threshold or the expected growth towards our next target condition, we put it red, so that we identify a problem and we can improve on it as a product owner team. Clear on the metric part? Yeah, David.
Yeah, I just have a question. So I'm putting this whole concept together in my head. And so is a product owner team sort of similar to like a cross-functional Scrum team in the sense that, you know, how you're talking about all these different disciplines and like, can one person do all these things? And so, you know, the cognitive load, some people would like to use that word. Is it kind of like a Scrum team in itself? Do they ever use Scrum to do this kind of work? Or what have you seen as helpful patterns to handle the type of work you have up on the screen here? And yeah,
this is what I show you know is setting the board up. As soon as the board has been set up, we go into the routines. It's not a Scrum team because they not work together on a day-to-day basis. If you look at the first scenario where we had this deep and narrow and then a huge organization, then we have one person really being the product owner, having the final say on certain aspects or final decision right, but all the others are equal. So they have similar understandings, they have similar mandates, so they are equal, they have the same skill sets and things like that. It's just the load of work that needs to be done to attend different meetings and different reports that one person cannot handle it. So that's why they divide it. And this is a clear, we divide the work so that we can handle it. If you look at the Scrum team, they should not divide the work to handle it. No, they should collaborate to make it done, which is different. There is no sequencing of work within this product owner team, which you would have in a Scrum team if you say analysis and then coding and then testing, for example. But it's completely different contexts for a product owner. In the second scenario, it's different. You have different skills. You have somebody that's more skilled into market and sales analytics, and then somebody that's more skilled into SWOT analysis and competitive analysis, and then you have the real product owner. That's where it's more cross-functional.
That's what that's the part I was wondering, because you're aggregating all these different inputs. And I mean, do you typically have those skill sets available in a product owner team? That's a lot of ground to cover.
If it's needed, then we needed to have it in the product owner team and not somewhere else, of course.
Okay.
Well, and I'm kind of wondering too, Jürgen, for some of these, it seems like you could design the system to collect and report so it would be automated, right? In some way, shape, or form. Not all of them, but I would imagine that several could be derived from the system. So potentially that's something that the Scrum teams could, you know, help to design. What's the strategy to collect data around, customer acquisition costs, LTV, some of the other things that we see here,
Yeah.
so that you can just derive it directly from the system instead of someone doing it with pivot tables and elbow grease, which I think a lot of us have grown up kind of doing that sort of thing. So that's maybe what we're picturing. But I think in state, if it can be derived from the system, a lot of these seem like things
and
that
if
could
it's
become visibility into the backlog. Right?
and if it cannot be deriven or extracted from the system as such, then this is becoming the first item in the backlog. Because if you don't put it as a first item in the backlog, we're just doing stuff and we're driving in the dark.
Yep.
I'm curious. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
Oh, so I'm curious. Obviously, the output of all of this is a single prioritized product backlog, right?
Not yet.
But like all of these activities, right, inform the overall priority that the teams are going to work on, right? Like all this gets crunched down, and it's like, here's our priorities, right? Is that the wrong way to think about it?
That's where I need to go to the Agile Manifesto. And on top of the Agile Manifesto, the first sentence says we are uncovering better ways by doing and teaching others to do it. So this flat lists ordered stuff might not be the most appropriate practice.
I mean, but there's always like a number one thing, right? That the team, whether you're doing a story map or whatever, but there's like a number one thing that everybody understands is no.
Is it? I don't know. So let's see if we continue in the deliver value, because now we are designing yet focus. We first have purpose, which is big. Then we have capabilities, which are a bit smaller. And within capabilities, we define the metrics, which is narrowing down focus again, which is important, but still connected to the bigger piece. So if we narrow down focus, it doesn't mean we don't have other metrics, by the way. So it means we have goal metrics, which is will drive our backlog. So either the flat list or not, I don't like the flat list, by the way. But anyhow, so it will drive the product backlog. It doesn't mean we don't have health metrics. So for example, if I have a metric running, like the new customers, and at a certain moment in time I think like good enough, then I will put it in the health metrics, at least for a couple of months longer. Because if I don't put it in focus and suddenly it goes bad, I want to notice it. Only after a long time, if I notice nothing is really changing, is still in acceptable terms, then I can demote it, then disregard it and not track it anymore. So it might be that I put it in as a health metric there. I keep monitoring it still for a couple of months, and suddenly I see, whoa, it's going bad. I put it back into focus within that strategic capability. So this is an important dynamic that we need to have in this kind of focus points metric-like things that we put forward. Some are in focus, and we will have threshold and a next target. Some we will not have a next target, and we call health metrics. If it's irrelevant, then it becomes demoted. It's just other metrics we're not looking at anymore. So I hope this will help. Metrics I do like to use, or models I like to use related to metrics, is the Dave McClure, the R metrics, so the pirate metrics. The heart model I also like because of the namings in this, happiness, engagement, so it's fuzzy and fluffy. It's nice to talk about those things. But I also even like the OKR examples.co. I dislike this OKR thing. Well, actually, I love it and I hate it at the same time. So I love the OKR thing because it gives great directions on objectives and key results, which is basically the trend metrics I'm looking for at this moment in time. What I do hate about OKRs is that they put on top of something else. If you want to use OKR system, then OKR becomes an item in the backlog. And it should flow through the same system as any other thing that we want to get stuff done. If we put it next to the product backlog, for example, or next to the backlog system, which I'm explaining now, so then we have two backlogs again, going into the same people, the same persons. It doesn't help anybody. So that's where but if you want to see, okay, I also give OKR examples.co, for example, to people that are a bit stuck in how do I design, how do they look like? It's like, you know what, go to OKR examples, you might find some inspiration over there. But similar patterns. You know, good stuff is always having similar patterns. If we now expand our OBEA room at this moment in time, then we have the lead successful strategies. For customer delight, we have 2 metrics. For product quality, we have 2. For environmental impact, apparently 1. And then financial viability, we have 3 of them. Also there, if we say, okay, where do we have issues? We have issues with quality and with the financial viability somehow. So as a product owner team, what are we going to do? We are going to mainly look at those problems and see, okay, how can we now collaborate as a team? Maybe change some stuff to get out of the misery and get them back into green. How do we do this? We put a routine on top of that. So this is what we call the drive performance routine. It might be that, for example, in this case, every Tuesdays of the even weeks, between 1 and 2:30 p.m., the product owner team is going to get together. And what is our goal? We check whether we are achieving the desired level of performance. We establish new levels if needed, and identify potential problems to solve and adjust our plan of attack where needed. Voila. So we evaluate how are we doing, do we do good? We might change metrics. You know what, this metric becomes a help metric. We initiate a new metric that goes into focus. It might be that we readjust the target condition because we were too optimistic maybe. It might be that we need to readjust the backlog items, which I'll come back to later. So also there, we do this. You also notice we see learn and act together, but we don't discuss content for more than 5 minutes. And this is important. If it requires more than 5 minutes, then we need to discuss a hell of a lot longer than the 1 hour and a half, and then we need to go more in depth, and most probably it's related to a problem. And for that, we have content meetings, which I will also come back to later, which is fixed. And this is important. We put routines, and really every even week for this 1 hour and a half, it's blocked. So, and now we don't need to discuss metrics and things like that. You know what, we come into the routine, the metrics are being updated by the owners. So we see the metrics, we see the problems, we can address the problems. We discuss about actions within 5 minutes or decisions within 5 minutes, and poof, off we go. How do we do this? We first go with, for every strategic capability, we first see, are there problems or challenges? What is hindering us to get to the desired levels? How do we need to collaborate as a team to solve it? And then, is there any learning or context change that we need to share with each other? So, for example, that's where people that do the sales and market trend analysis would share information learnings, for example. People that do this competitive analysis, if they have something extra to add on that, that's where they would share the context and the change with each other. And now everybody in this team is up to date with what is happening on that level. What is important as well is the closure. So schedule follow-up discussions in the content meeting, in the content time slot, which will come clear later. So summarize their own actions. So really not only define the action, then at the end as well, like, yeah, David, do you know what actions did you say you will take? Where are they written down for us? So really make sure that it's clear what are the actions that we would take, and make sure they are on the OBEA, agree on who and what to communicate. And we need to communicate in different ways. We need to communicate inside this last bubble, and we need to communicate to the outside world. So is there something interesting we need to communicate? Who will communicate and what will we communicate? And then we say, okay, did we follow our routine? Was there something we need to adjust the next time? And this way we improve the routine as well, very shortly. So this is really focused on this metric and targets and how do we move according to the outcomes we want to achieve. So next to that, we continue. And that's where we say, okay, we're going to add the backlog items, the experiments. And now we don't have a flat list. This is an example thing on the same row. For example, you say, you know what, we have future stuff, next stuff, ongoing stuff, and done stuff. If you look at the future, those are the really big ideas that we might want to work on, that will influence the metrics that are in the drive performance for the capability that we defined. So in a refinement session, we are going to refine the big ideas into smaller actionable things, of course, so which is the next stage. And then the next stage, if we refine or put it into sprint planning, for example, we will make it a bit more smaller, most probably, but also define what is the expected impact. So if we, before it hits really sprint planning or during sprint planning, we're also going to identify which metric or which impact do we expect to see if it gets done. So when the item gets done, then at that moment in time, we have learning towards our metrics and see if we need to readjust into our next or future items, of course. So, and this is the deliver value routine. So that's where we're going to look like, okay, how do we do according to what we have set forward? Did we learn something from it? Do we need to change the next or the future, and also solve problems? If I ask you as well, where are the problems now in deliver value? Then you will notice the exclamation mark in the second row in the red part. There's an exclamation mark on the bottom row in the green and in the dark orange part. So those are the ones we need to address. It might mean that we need to postpone some stuff, that we need to put something stuff forward or backwards. So we need to discuss. Maybe one of the things more on the left side need to move more on the right in favor of some other post and so forth and so on. And this is basically their product backlog. Preferably, it's on the you know what, we spent the effort. It's not one team. We have 8 teams working on this, so we don't want to see too much things on ongoing, of course, because it would mean we are not focused on anything. So yes, David.
If a team runs out of work during the sprint and they come to this board, how do they know which item to pick up?
I've never had a team going out of work. So, and every team that gets out of work in the less adoptions I work with, then I point them to what I call the definition of undone.
Oh, okay.
So,
I mean, maybe they thought the implementation was going to be very tricky, and it was like a quarter of the effort, and they're ready for something new. What do they need to go talk to the product owner, or is there a systematic way to look at this board and determine like what's the next thing to pick up?
First things first, if I think as a team I'm done in the current iteration, I think I'm done. Depends how many days, but if it's like still three days to go, for example, then I would not pick something new. Then it's like, what can I improve in those 3 days? What can I improve to make sure we can get faster, get better, get to a higher level of done in future sprints, and experiment on that, which is going to be a lot more useful than starting something and not finishing it anyhow.
You must plan better than most other people do. Your teams. Because I run into this problem.
Yeah, the thing is, if it's like what Einstein told us already, yeah. So if we keep doing the things that as we did it before, we're not going to change anything. That's a definition of insanity or something like that. So so if we want to improve, then we need to make sure we take time to do the improvements.
Yeah, so, but in the rare occasion that does happen, how does your team just, I mean, we assume there's a high level of communication, then that's how we determine what we could pull from the backlog. Let's say we've got a week or something, or is it just probably not worth considering that kind of use case?
I've never been in the situation where like half of the sprint is still open or suddenly free of things to do.
All right.
I generally see people coming from an environment where there's high pressure to deliver output. I'm not saying outcomes, by the way, because metrics they don't seem to have. But I see most of the teams coming from an environment where there's pressure on output. So if we start the less adoption, they should not be pressured. They should not have stretching goals and whatsoever, so that they generate a room and space for improvement. But I see teams always going into self-inflicted pain by overcommitting.
I've experienced just that scenario when we've been tackling tech debt, and when we dig into it, we determine that we're too conservative because some of it was the discovery process wasn't perhaps as thorough as it should have been.
Yeah, I would be happy.
Do you
I would be happy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I suppose
you're
so.
dealing with technical debt, so there's always cleanup work.
Yeah, that's true. True.
So instead of starting a new feature, then you know what? Next time, do your planning a bit better, maybe. But at this moment in time, clean up even more things, which you see will come up later anyhow. You know what is coming up in the backlog; it's visible to you. So you know that you have technical debt. So clean up already before you start addressing new features with the time left. It's a win-win. No, anyhow. So there's also a routine on the deliver value, by the way. So also there, deliver value. Now you see the Tuesdays. So the same Tuesday, the same hours from 1 till 2:30, but instead of the even weeks, it's the uneven weeks. So every Tuesday, basically, as a product owner team, we have 1 hour and a half where we sit together. And 1 week, it's the metrics related stuff and the expectations on the outcomes we have. And the other week, it's really on what are we working on? What are the teams working on? How are we doing in that domain? So here as well, by visualizing, sharing context regarding strategic plan and the work that we do, we agree, align on the best way forward. We expose potential problems so we can tackle them together. Also there, we don't discuss content for more than 5 minutes. What is different here, we first go to the problems and then we go per strategic capability, see, okay, what are the changes, what are the learnings, do we need to remove some of the post-its over there, do we need to add some new ones? Preferably, to be honest, this routine is done during sprint review. But I have experienced that in many of the organizations, courage is not there to do it during sprint review, and I prefer to do it afterwards with a selected committee instead of the huge amount of people in a review session. Both are okay for me, but it needs to happen. What is important here as well is the questions. So what new problems impact our plan? What must we do, adjust to address this problem? Are we adequately solving? You know what? The kind of question you put in a routine is important. So if you have those routines as well, please put a question. I even encourage teams that have their daily scrums, create your own routines and put the questions and think about your question. If I would ask you, James, how is your project doing? Then James is going to answer.
Doing well.
Voila.
Yes, it
doing
won't
well.
be...
Voila.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a general answer you get. How is your project? It's doing well. It's doing good. Well, it's not that bad. Voila, and it's done. So, but if I ask James now a different question. So, James, what could we do together to make your project going more smoothly?
Oh, I would probably give you a specific impediment or two in that case, because the question is better.
Well, the question is better. You get also your brains triggered in a different way. So having the questions listed and adjust them according to your context and needs, and make sure that the right information, the right stuff is being addressed during the routine is a very important aspect. So those are questions that have been proven to be pretty much okay, but you will most probably need to adjust those questions according to your context, your needs.
The other is also a social question. Unless you're a physician, it's like asking me, well, how are you doing today? And the truth is, you don't really want to know. You just want a blanket, oh yeah, I'm good. The truth is, you don't want to know, oh, my knee was really achy this morning, blah, blah, blah. So that's one of the problems with the other question as well.
No. Yeah. No, cool. So in this case, so the things that you see now in the routines, all the questions there and the sequence of the question has a meaning. So it's not just a couple of questions. It really has a meaning. So also for you and for your teams and things, if you have routines and you have those frequent things coming back, write them down and adjust. That's how you can improve. You cannot improve on something that has no structure. For example, refinements as well. I want refinements to have repetitively used similar refinement practices, like C4 modeling, story mapping, anything that fits the context. But don't always go with different practices, because if I always go with different practices, then I don't get better at it. If I go into refinement, I use no practice and it's just blah, 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 and I put some words on a whiteboard, and you cannot improve as well. So you need some kind of structure. Also here as well in routines, make sure there's some kind of structure, definitely in the beginning. So to help people into this improvement pattern.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I feel like I could see like a Miro board where people have some quiet time for reflection and kind of answer these questions and like talk about it afterwards would be really valuable.
Yeah. Cool. There is no one way. So I've given you some things. You have seen this this connection through numbers thing, but there is also some kind of Obea board on the right one, which is a bit more expansive, where we have a differentiation between lag and lead metrics. So if you look on the right top one, then the centerpiece is lag metrics. Lag metrics you start measuring once you have put stuff into production. It means you start seeing the impact after you have done the investment. It's too late. Churn in your users, new users, revenue, quality, things like that. So next to that, there is also different metrics being designed, which are lead metrics. Lead metrics, you can at least evaluate every single sprint. And in their case, between sprint and delivering into production was a big gap of a couple of months, by the way, because of undone work and other misery in this thing. So, but to be able to identify, do we drive impact forward? We had lead metrics, which we could evaluate every single sprint. So, and a lead metric is giving you a high probability that a lag metric will also move, but that's an assumption we want to also validate as fast as we can, because if we make a wrong assumption, we also generate lots of investment and money and time wasted somewhere where it should not be. So that's the right one. And the bottom left one, it's one where we have a 2-year forecasting with some kind of internal versus external focus thing in there. So different formats, different contexts. So don't focus too much on the format itself. The act and respond, I think most of you are familiar with a very simple Kanban board where you have to doing done. What is added here is an inbox. So we have an inbox where team members, but product owner team as well. So the members in the product owner team, but also the members in the teams next to it, or even management, can put in some new problem they have, or some requests towards this product and product owner team in this inbox thing. So problems are red, requests are generally blue or dark orange. So, and also on top of that, we do a routine, of course. So if you look at the routine, the first thing we're going to do is look at the inbox. So if you look at the act and respond routine now, it's a kind of a daily stand-up for the product owner team, but we don't do it daily. The frequency depends on the amount of change and problems and requests that occur. If we notice as a product owner team, we still use email and phone calls and in between chatting, then it means our act and respond is not frequent enough. If we do act and respond very frequently, you don't see lots of new stuff being put into our inbox, maybe we do it too frequently. So in their case here, in this example, it was every Tuesday and every Thursday between 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. So it's a 30-minute thing. In the act and response, the goal there is to act and respond to new problems and or requests that require the attention, as well as following up on the actions in order to help each other and get stuff done. So here as well, we learn and see and act together, and it's not 5 minutes. We cannot talk about content more than 3 minutes. So if we need more than 3 minutes, then we are going to schedule a follow-up discussion in the content block. Check-in is immediately like everybody here. Do we need to share something? And then the first thing we do is first things first, we go to the inbox. If you look at the inbox, the first things we're going to address is the problem. So, and if we address a problem, can we make a decision? Or what action do we need to take to have progress made on that problem? So either it's a quick decision and then we note the decision down because we still need to communicate and follow up on it, or it's an action that we can tackle to progress on it, not necessarily to fix it, but to progress on it. Now we put an action on the board for somebody to take it, and then we follow up on this thing. So in this way, we first tackle the problems, then we do the requests, and if this is done, we go to the ongoing activities. We check the done items, ask each other questions. So I get something done, I put it in done. David, you have a question or you don't understand really what it was about. You ask the question, I give you an answer, then we remove all the done. We go to the ongoing and we ask each other, do we need to support you to get it done? So we have a strong focus now within the team to get shit done, actually. Stop starting, but start finishing. And really help each other to make this thing. And only if this is done, we can share some more relevant context. It's only a 30-minute meeting, by the way. So also there in the closure, we schedule follow-up meetings. We restate those are the new actions that we do. We need to agree what to communicate, and then we can see, okay, do we need to change our routine, yes or no? And did we follow it correctly? Was it sufficient for us, yes or no? That's the act and respond. If you now look at the full board, this could be a sample board. So we have our lead successful strategies, purpose capabilities, strategic capabilities. We have our metrics, outcome-based metrics, which shows us the current situation, the target where we want to achieve. We see problems, yes or no. We have deliver value. Now, if we have the drive performance routine and we identify a problem, so a red one, it might be that with a small action within our team, we think it's going to be solved. Then we put the small action into the act and respond into the DOM. And we follow up on this thing. It might be that it's that we see something and we say, okay, you know what, we learned that we need to readjust our course. It would mean that we go to the deliver value and we most probably remove certain things in the ongoing next future to make sure that we can get back on track. Another thing, it might be that it's a very big, complex thing where we do not really understand what it is. At that moment in time, we're going to schedule a problem kata, as we want to call it, a problem kata into the content meeting. In a problem kata, you see sample here. We give it the problem a title. Then we have our current condition, next condition, the goal that we want to achieve, the next target. Then the red post-its on this problem kata or the obstacles. What is hindering us of achieving this next target condition? The yellows in the center post-its means the experiments we can do to hopefully remove those obstacles. And then you choose one. The yellows in the bigger box on the right bottom part of this problem kata means this is an experiment I want to run. In the green box, I want to run would mean Jürgen. I'm taking the lead. In the blue box next to me, James would be there and say, okay, I'm your mentor. So he will make sure that I actually do something with this experiment and help me out. So he becomes a kind of my buddy. And then the three blue post-its is when do we understand this experiment or this action is done? When do we consider it finished? And then the next post is when do we consider it good enough? Yes or no? And then an observation to share with the others. And you see as well within the product owner team, if I take an action, I always have somebody within the same team to be my buddy. So we really collaborate to make sure problems get solved, fixed, and move forward. So we do this with the drive performance. We do the same thing with the deliver value routine, of course. If you now look at this product owner team agenda, so how does my agenda look like? Then on Monday, we could have sprint review and sprint planning that I need to support as a product owner team maybe. So on Tuesday, we have this 30-minute act and respond in the morning. And in the afternoon, we have 1.5 hours for the drive performance. We just did sprint review, so it's good to look at the metrics. So the Wednesday, we have a 2-hour content block. And this is important because if in the act and respond or in the drive performance or in the deliver value routine, if it's like, yeah, we need to have more of a discussion or we need to have this problem kata, unraveling this complexity of this issue, we need to spend more time on it, then we immediately book it into the content block after it. What is a content block? It's 2 hours that the team blocks. Never has some other meeting or other activities planned on top of it. So even if we would be a team of 5 or all of us is the product owner team, would be way too big, by the way, but anyhow. So all of us is the product owner team. And myself, David, Samuel, and Alex, we say, okay, we need to go into this problem definition. We are going to use the content block on Wednesday. Even then, James, Consuelo, Mike, Shelly, and all the others, you don't overbook anything else on top of that meeting. Why? Because if the 4 of us think, damn, you know what, we think about this, but we are not sure, but we know James knows about this, but James is not in a meeting, then we should have the ability to call James immediately into the meeting. If I cannot do this, then we immediately jump the next week and another week or a month ahead, and then we're not solving problems, we're just postponing. So that's why the content block is important. So the content block is a research space to go more into content, to help us solve and make progress on problems and make sure we keep things going on track with the assumption we had on the outcomes we want to achieve. So it's always a free block. If nothing is planned and nothing is needed from none of us, then you know what, then we have 2 hours to get work done. On Thursday we could have the act and respond another 30 minutes, and then maybe we have refinement sessions, which we also need to attend on Thursday. So that's it. If you look like, okay, what do we need to add? What do we have as a product owner team? It means we have about 5 hours by default, and if required in the content box, add another 4 hours. So we need 9 hours out of the 80 hours in a 2-week iteration. And then we avoid all the emails, we avoid all the phone calls, we make sure we are consistent with the view and the information we have within the team itself. We readjust things, we solve problems, so everything else that we need to do can happen outside. So creating more reports is happening outside this thing. Creating, go to other meetings in this huge context over there can happen outside this meeting. Doing competitive analysis can happen outside this meeting. But this is the only thing we need to actually make sure we are at the same pace and we can behave as one, even though we are a product owner team. So for me and my current, I've been now using this in a couple of different things. And what I noticed that it's a great educational system in an organization because of the transparency. If you have this board and all the connections, you make it transparent. You show it to others that are slightly involved. You're transparent about this, so you get early feedback, and that's a good thing. Yet very scary in many environments, but anyhow, it's a good thing to have this feedback. And what I noticed that it becomes an educational system to get also other people thinking not about outputs anymore and this feature and that thing, but they start thinking more and more about the outcomes, the impact. And in the organization, I have given you now the real example. So this initial real example, which is unreadable on purpose. Also on this one, the manager, actually 2 levels up, was that intrigued that he really wanted to have this kind of product owner levelated into this higher level thing, which became more of a product owner / management collaboration practice. So, and this is what I like very much, to drive the organizations away from output and more looking at the outcome and the impact we deliver. And then estimates become irrelevant. Forecasting becomes less relevant, and so forth and so on. So, and this is good. One more warning, by the way. So if you want to try it out, this kind of product owner OBEA approach based on 2 different practices, don't use it in a system where there's punishment and rewards and this kind of contract thinking. So where we have the CYA, CYA technology, the cover your ass technology, that's not the right environment. You need to use this kind of practice in an environment where we have this kind of continuous improvement mindset, where we have collaboration ongoing. It's just like many other things. It's just like Scrum. This kind of practice in combination with less, for example, it could be gold on your hands, but it could also be giving a gun to a killer. So be cautious about that. So with this, I thank you. This is the end of what I prepared for, at least.
Thank you so much. That was awesome, Jürgen.
Thank you.
Should we do some Q&A, see if anyone has questions that want to go back to any of the slides, or feel free to either raise your hand or come off mute.
I'm overwhelmed a little bit, so I need to take these slides and digest them. Will they be available for us? We'll spend a little more time looking at the slides.
Recorded. So the full session has been recorded, so it's
available.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go on YouTube. So, and I'll put the link in the comments section of this meetup.com event. So.
Yeah, I need to it needs to sink in a little bit more, but it awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely answered my question about, I think I asked, well, did they act like a Scrum team, or how did they do it? And these different routine slides in the PO team agenda kind of tied it all together for me. Yeah, I thought it was very helpful, and I could see this adding some structure to a product team that's feeling very chaotic, or looking for something to try out and iterate on. So thanks.
Yeah. if I initiate this kind of practice, I generally prepare by observing and taking lots of information and notes, and then defining what would I think were decent practices. It's a full week workshop. So going from I have nothing until the board is ready to be used with the routines.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much for staying up late for us, Jürgen. That was a great presentation, very educational. Hopefully you'll be able to come again in the future. And to everyone else, have a great, wonderful evening or rest of the day, wherever you are. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
cool.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much,
having
buddy.
me around.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
David.
We'll get
Yep,
things
thanks, Jürgen.
posted and share on the meetup as well as on the WordPress site so people can get the materials. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.